So we started to wander back to the barracks. We walk into the barracks, and at that point, going up the steps, a guy hollers, "All right, you guys, let's go. Let's strip it down. Time now for a GI party. Let's move it. Come on, get the lead out. Come on, move it up there." You know, that night I discovered what a GI party is. GI party is spent mostly on your knees, and all the beds were pushed back to the walls, and they slosh. Certain guys are assigned to the buckets. They go and get the hot water with the GI soap. The other guys have those brushes, those GI brushes, and we simply scrubbed the entire barracks down for about 9 hours that night. Every conceivable thing was made clean. Well, I discovered something, the GI party. Well, these are curiously, now you would say that must be a real drag, because you think of it in terms of your house, the GI party. It must be a drag, but actually there is, just like Beetle Beatty says there is a curious carnival air that develops during a GI party that is definitely there. And so one night, and it's like a whole bunch of guys. What you do, you strip down your underwear, because you're going to get GI soap, water all over you. You don't want to get your fatigues wet, because you're going to have to wear your fatigues out of the rifle range the next morning. So you wear nothing but GI underwear and GI shoes, and you're all down on your knees scrubbing the floor until the wood is gray. You're walking away then scrubbing. Well, one night, an incident occurred in the GI party, which I have always remembered. It's funny when you get a bunch of guys together how curious the phenomenon of violence is, and how easily it grows. There was a guy in our nobody knew anybody. Remember, nobody knew anybody in this space. We were all new guys. There were a smattering of guys who had been in other companies, and you didn't know who was who. You being in the Army 3 or 4 days, you could have been in the Army 6 months, because there were some guys that were regulars, who were going back through basic, all kinds of things. So we're having a GI party. It's about 10 o'clock at night. Lights out was about 11 o'clock at night, about an hour from now. And the light bulbs hang. They have naked light bulbs. We're scrubbing away in a barracks, and everybody's hollering. And it was a 2-floor barracks, two stories, one above the other. And I was on the top floor when this happened, scrubbing away. And guys downstairs are scrubbing, other guys are cleaning the windows. And it's kind of like, it is a party in a curious way. It kind of develops a certain, camaraderie. Everybody's running around pouring water and scrubbing away there, see. Well, there was a guy upstairs with me. There was about 50 guys upstairs. He was just part of the crowd. There was a little round guy that came from Oklahoma City. I always remember that. I'd never known anybody from Oklahoma City, but he came from Oklahoma City. His name was Spitzer. That's all I remember about him. He was from Oklahoma City, and his name was Spitzer. And he was little, and he was older than the rest of us. See, all of us guys were like teenagers, they're like 17, 18-year-old guys. And Spitzer, of course, he seemed a lot older than he was, obviously. He was probably about 25, but he seemed sort of staid and elderly to us. And Spitzer was a very quiet guy. Never said anything. For like 3 days we'd been out on rifle range and marching. Spitzer's very quiet. He's little. And he's quiet. And he's sort of gray. Not gray hair, but he just had a gray personality. You just couldn't relate to Spitzer. Well, in the middle of the GI party, somebody hollered out to Spitzer. I remember this voice. It said, "Hey, Spitzer, how come you wear that cookie duster?" A cookie duster. You know what a cookie duster is? That's a mustache. That's a slob talk for mustache. Often, they also use the word soup strainer. So he says, "Hey, Spitzer, how come you're wearing a cookie duster?" And you hear a bunch of guys laughing. And I'm down on the floor. I'm scrubbing away. I never have told this story because it's a curiously painful story. And Spitzer didn't say much. He sort of laughed. Now, here's where he made his mistake. He sort of, kind of glared around, didn't say much, and he's down on the floor scrubbing away there. And then somebody picked it up. Said, "Hey, Spitzer, how come you wear a cookie duster, huh? What's the matter? You afraid your nose is going to stick out like that? Ha, ha, ha." And one thing led to the next. Just like that, it began to snowball. I had never been in anything like this in my life before. This curious snowballing. Remember, this guy's a stranger. Now, in the case of somebody having a hassle when you're with a bunch of kids you know, that's understandable. You know the guys, and it's got a long history. But have you ever had a hassle with somebody that's a total stranger over totally nothing? Well, that's the first time it happened to me. This kid says, "Hey, Spitzer, you got a cookie duster there. Ha, ha, ha." And Spitzer's getting a little bugged about this. He's doing nothing. He's a little gray guy. He's down there scrubbing away. Well, at that point, there was a corporal in charge of us. He picked it up. This guy was from Tennessee. He comes over, and for some reason or other, he stood over Spitzer and said the following. How come you don't answer these guys? Why don't you answer them? They're asking you a question. How come you're wearing a cookie duster, huh? At which point, I could sense it's changing. Spitzer, because you don't argue with a corporal when you're a yardbird down on your knees scrubbing the floor. At which point, Spitzer sort of mumbled something. He said, "Come on, now stand up and tell us." Spitzer got up, and he said, "What do you want me to do?" So what do you mean, what do we want you to do? What are you trying to give us here? We ask you, how come you're wearing a cookie duster? What do you say, guys? Ha, ha, ha. How come the cookie duster? And, of course, everybody says, yeah, ha, ha, whoa, whoa, whoa. And downstairs, they start hearing us laughing. A couple of guys come up and say, "What's going on up here?" And somebody says they're asking to Spitzer about the cookie duster. And within a minute, I never saw anything like that. There's a crowd of guys. There must have been about 75 guys. The barracks had that many easily. And they're all up on the top floor, and in the middle of them is Spitzer. And they're all laughing about his cookie duster. And instead of him laughing and saying, "Oh, well, what the hell, I got a cookie duster, he did the absolute wrongest thing. What do you think he did? I'll tell you what he did. Being a male, you could probably guess. Here's this little squirt in the middle of all of us, and I'm sort of in the middle of the crowd. I'm not doing anything. I'm just watching. And by now, there's everybody sort of joining in. "Hey, Spitzer, what a cookie duster! Huh? Hey, let's take a look at that thing. What's the matter, kid? You know what? What, you trying to look like you're Ronald Coleman or something? What do you think you are, huh? Errol Flynn, cookie duster. Hey, let's call him Cookie Duster Spitzer." And here he is in the middle of this thing, and he does the wrong thing. He looks at the whole crowd, and he says, "All right, you guys, what are you going to do about it?" Well, the one thing you do not ask a mob is, what is it going to do about it? Unfortunately, with mobs, they always have a way of doing something about it. At which point, somebody says, "What did you say, Spitzer?" And he says, "What are you going to do about it?" The guy's practically crying. You can see this. He's scared like hell. And with that, it happened. Somebody grabbed Spitzer by the foot. Just reached, it was someone, we were a big circle. Some guy reached down from behind and just yanked his foot. And he starts flailing around, Somebody else then grabs his other foot, and he flies over backwards. Within 8 milliseconds, there are 15 guys got his arms, 48 guys got his feet, and he's struggling, and he's yelling, "Come on, you guys, get it out, get it out!" And it got worse and worse. "No, hey, Spitzer's got a cookie duster, yeah!" And they're throwing him up and down. The guy's flipping. Well, as he's flipping, they got more and more into the thing. And somebody says, "All right, hurry up. Hey, you over here. Go on down to the John. Bring up get some shaving cream. Let's go. You get a razor. We'll show you what we're going to do about it. Oh, Spencer's got a cookie duster. Whoa, whoa." And they're cheering and yelling, and they hold him down on the bunk. About 37 guys, and the guy is going out of his mind. He's flipping. He's just, flipping his wig. And the guy's terrified, and they take this shaving cream. They take the thing and they squirt the shaving cream on it. They rub it in, and 2 guys, one on each side, starts to shave off his mustache with the razor. Well, of course, he is flipping, and he's getting hysterical. And at that point, he flips around, and as he does so, one of the razors cuts him literally from right under his nose, practically right up to the edge of his ear, just like that. And man, blood is all over the place. And now the guy is really hysterical. And the crowd doesn't know what the hell to do. They're holding him down and yelling. And It was a fantastic scene. Here, the blood is pouring off, and they're afraid to let the guy go because he was absolutely out of his mind. They figured, at that moment, the guy was like a raging wild animal. And the crowd was sort of stunned because the blood is flying all over the place, and they don't know what to do. And with that, suddenly, you hear this voice says, "All right, Eddies, what's going on here? Eddies!" And there is a captain of MPs who has he's come charging up the stairs. Somebody has called the MPs. He comes roaring up the stairs. He's got this big white helmet on, the 45 and the whole business, and the white belt. And he is a captain. It says MP on this big brassard that they wear. And he's got 2 MPs with him. And they stood the mob up against the wall, all of us, in our underwear. And here's this guy laying on the bunk with the blood pouring off of him. I don't know what it was about or why it happened. Everybody sort of standing very quiet. And the MP sends one of the other guys down that was with him to get the ambulance, and 5 minutes later, they just take him out in an ambulance. He never returned to our company. And from that minute on, there was a curious atmosphere in Company K. And nobody ever mentioned it after that. Nobody ever mentioned Spitzer. And I'm probably the first guy who's ever brought it up. Because curiously enough, everybody felt rotten about it for years afterwards. Because this company was shipped out, we all hung together, and nobody ever mentioned Spitzer again. But at that point I realized just under the surface of every group of people lies that man-eating shark. I don't know where Spitzer is tonight. All I can say for the entire company, Spitzer, wherever you are, Company K still feels rotten about it.